intersex people? And he said, no. She said, well, I mean, it's a fact. Intersex people are real. He said, no. No, it's not. That's a myth.
Wait a minute, you mean the bee sting stories?
The fist, what?
Yeah, the bee sting.
Oh, the bee sting story? I'm not familiar with the bee sting story.
Oh, sure you are.
I am?
It's like, and then we got the ones that suddenly wake up at age 37 after being a father, and oops, all of a sudden, within 3 years, something biological changed, and whoopee, they're a rocket scientist who's become a female.
Yeah, I mean, it's not...
These stories ring about as true as, oh gosh, let's see, I'm not going to say it.
Well, you know, it's not my place to comment on someone else's experience, personal experience. I feel comfortable talking about people's behaviors and, you know, logical underpinnings of certain ideology and stuff, but, you know, you know, it's none of my business whether or not someone cross-dresses for sexual kicks or cross-dresses to feel that they're expressing their full personality or whatever, or, you know, a transsexual who doesn't identify as being a transsexual or anymore. That's none of my business, you know, and it's none of my... Yes. Hello?
Listen.
Yes.
You know, a couple days ago, I went down to one of these, well, I don't know what you call it, a gay bar, a gender variant bar, whatever you want to talk about. And I went there with a few cross-dressing friends. And then there were others that came in, and it was like, okay, there were, you know, maybe like 12 people there. And it was blatantly apparent to everyone that was there who was a cross-dresser and who was not. And I don't want to deny any human being their rights to respect as a human being. But at the same time, I don't want to let men control the rights of women. Now that's a hard thing to kind of draw a line down, but I have watched for decades this crazy transgender umbrella that makes no sense to the main mass of heterosexual normative society. And all it does is create problems. You know, are we going to tell an employer that Joe can show up tomorrow as Josephine and use the ladies' room, and the next day show up as Joe again? That's idiocy.
Yeah.
You know, we don't need to be down at the level of regulating individual bathrooms and employer conduct.
Well, I think that the example of Joe coming in as Josephine one day and then another day, you know, I think that where I've heard stories like that are mostly through very kind of right-wing folks. I've never actually, I don't know that I've ever actually encountered a situation like that. I'm sure it exists somewhere, but I'm certain that it's not, something that happens so often that it needs to be explicitly addressed or something. I do think that I have a newspaper from it was the 50s, and it was a reader responding to a story that a deacon or a preacher or something like that had written, where he conflates transsexuals and cross-dressers. This was actually going on in the 1950s, and talking about how funky that is. And the reader was courageous enough to make some corrections and to point out that the problem isn't, the terminology was transvestites and transsexuals. The problem is people like this preacher who is so judgmental and blah, 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 that's the problem. And I think that is our problem. Our problem isn't the rare instance where someone who, for whatever reason, maybe it's mental illness, maybe it's not, who the hell knows, does at some point show up as Josephine one day and Joe another or whatever. I think that an employer in that situation, that they can handle that. I think our problem isn't, the cross-dressers or, the transvestites or the transgenderists or any of those people. I think it's, right-wing people who portray us as mentally disturbed, portray cross-dresser people as mentally disturbed men who, all cross-dress for sexual pleasure and want to break in, hang out at the women's restroom. Whenever you see right-wing propaganda, whenever they make their commercials and stuff, invariably they'll show a man hanging out at the restroom. In fact, there's a video, I'm sure it's on YouTube, where a right-wing group in Florida was trying to defeat trans protections, and their commercial was of this guy with this beard and dark glasses hanging out outside the women's restroom, and this little girl from a playground goes in and he follows her in. And then, there's ominous music, and the group says, if, basically their message is, if transgender protections or transsexual protections or if gender protections are enabled, this will happen, which is a lie. That's a lie. But people bought it, and...
Hey, wait a minute.
Yes.
Are you aware that back in the 60s, when the feminist movement was Gloria, was moving forward and whatever, that the far right was hot and heavy accusing the feminist movement of the intention of making sure that across this land, everywhere, all the bathrooms would be unisex. What about this same damn bathroom men? They dragged them down, they accused them, they leveled all these charges. It's the same reason why we should not go there.
Yeah, and I saw some...
This is not something we need to be dealing with.
I saw someone...
Not the men to keep their asses out of the ladies' room.
I saw someone in the chat say something about Title VII, and one of the I forget her name. She visited Houston, and I got a chance to actually meet with her. She's the